Hi all. Okay, so today we're doing number 12, Cybersecurity for Beginners, Job Post, Pay, and Lifestyle. So we're mainly going to talk about what the job you apply for should pay for. Does it pay enough? So first, last video we ended on magazines, and I wanted to bring up this one here. It's CIO Magazine. That's Chief Information Officer. This C, there's something called C-suite. C-suite, that's all the big shots in the company. So for our purposes, it's the information officer, CIO. That would be the main person in charge of the computer department, the CIO. They mainly do high-level direction of the department. Usually does not do hands-on work. They're an executive. They tell other people what to do. But sometimes the CIO is the only person in the company's computer department. They have a computer department as one person, the CIO. Burnout is real common. The people in the computer department, they just get tired year in, year out of all the new technologies. In CIOs especially, there's high turnover. So in CIOs, there's high turnover. And I read that years ago. I saw it in a magazine article. I did a search the other day just to check to see what was going on. Do CIOs still have high level of turnover in 2026? And just to show you, it told me the other day that they do. So yes, CIO, Chief Information Officers, still experience a high level of turnover in 2026. Now, there's different reasons for turnover. They might be taking a better job. So they go through some of the details here. So the reason why I bring that up is, you go to work for a computer company, you want to be aware of maybe the person in charge of the department is just, he fried. My experiences, and what I've told people for years, that's kind of a joke, but it's true. Companies do not think they need more people. The CEO, the main guy, the main person in charge of the whole company, or even the other people, the supervisor and stuff, they might be thinking, why is this so hard? It's just that little computer thing on your desktop. They don't realize that inside there's a lot. I've been telling people that for 20 years or more. And it's gotten way harder now. When I first got into computers, things were fairly easy, even the servers, as compared to what's going on now. Something I wanted to bring up was flowcharts. When you get into computers and things like that, flowcharting is popular. So I thought this would be a good time to bring it up. So flowcharting shows the chain of command inside of a company. Now, why is that important? Well, if you have a complaint or you want to bring something up, you tell your immediate supervisor. You don't go to his supervisor or the supervisor above him. You follow the chain of command. If you don't follow the chain of command, that's a big no-no. So just keep that in mind when you start working somewhere. You can make flowcharts in Microsoft Word. They have special programs that make flowcharts. But Word, for our purposes, Word seems to do fine. So here's ChatGPT. What is a C-suite chain of command flowchart? I did this the other day, and it didn't really It gave me a good flow chart, but it didn't give me the pictures. See, it's just giving me the arrows here. So C-suite chain of command. Board of directors. Then the CEO. COO. CFO. CIO. There's also a CTO. Here we have CIO as information. And then they also have a Chief Technology Officer. More based on like a technology type thing, you know. Desktop computers, you know, what servers are we using. So what I was hoping was this would show you the flow charts. Let's see what Yahoo does. So this is the type of thing that I'm talking about when I say flow charts. So like this would be a decent flow chart here. Now there's more to flow charts. There's whole books written on flow charts. But just to give you an idea. So this is an older version of Word. And it has flow charting in it. Insert, tab, shapes, and then flow chart. So usually a flow chart starts with a round oblong. See if I can pick the right one here. And it usually ends with one. So you can move these around. You can put text in them. And then you can click here to say add text. And then let's say we put a square one in here. Square one would be like a process, you know. And then they usually have arrows. To show which way it goes. So doing it in Word is kind of hokey. So that's why they have actual programs that do it. A diamond is usually like for a decision. Say yes, no. I'm doing this off the top of my head, so. I should have had something prepared. Huh. Just to give you a general idea. Successful. You can move them around as much as you want when you get the crosshair one. When you get one that's just like a little arrow, that's a resize. So we can add a couple arrows here. And then if it was successful, it would go to the end, right? If it was not successful, then it would go back and try it again. So that's what I mean by a flow chart. Now, that's kind of a hokey one, but it gives you a general idea of what I'm talking about. So something that I bumped into in my younger days: know who the execs are by name and face. I worked at a retailer back in the 80s. The main CEO, the guy in charge of the whole company, he'd dress up in normal clothes, and he was known to show up at the store door 5 minutes before closing, and he'd bang on the door to see if he could get in and see what type of treatment the people working there would give him. It's usually the people running the store at the front of the store at closing time. They're locking the place up. So if they knew what he looked like, they would know that it was him. So that's why I say know who they are by name and face. So I bumped into this video, and it said there's a shortage of cybersecurity people. And I don't remember the exact number, but it was a big number. You're talking, I think it was like 60,000 people or 600,000 people. It was a lot of people. Just out of curiosity, let's see what ChatGPT says. So close to 300,000 needed just in the USA. Globally, almost 5 million. So that's what I was saying earlier. The computer business just exploded the last 20 years. I got into computers like 95, and around 2000 it got pretty good. Things were polished up, the servers and things like that. And then from 2000 on up, it just exploded. The level of complexity went way up. And if you're following it at all now with all the new AI and data centers, you know what I'm talking about. So I have a video on that. Later on, we talk about the data centers. So here, this is one of my pet peeves: not enough qualified talent. That goes for every business. Every company I worked for in my younger days, they always had training periods. They'd hire somebody that was close to the position, and then you go through a few months of training. So just to pick up on a few things here: budget cuts, hiring freezes, layoffs, burnout, retention. Computer people have always job hop. Common thing in the computer business, especially programming. You just go to another company that's paying better. What I wanted to go over today was, does your job pay enough? I'm talking to the young people. You might still be living at home. Parents are paying all the bills. So some of this stuff you might not have ever heard of as we get down into the details here. So as a teacher, my bosses have always told me, motivate people. Well, if you're not into it, how do you motivate someone? So money is the main way to motivate people. That is the number one motivation. So does the job you're applying for pay enough? Before we get to the details, there's a salary worker. That's usually like a management type thing. And then there's an hourly worker where you're punching a time clock. Salary workers, it sounds good, right? I want to be salary. I want to be management. You complete your job no matter how long it takes. They can work you as many hours as they want, 24/7. Boss wants to call you up 9 o'clock at night and say, hey, something's wrong, go fix it. you got to go because you're salary. Hourly, you complete your job within the specified hours. You put in 8 hours a day and go home and forget about it. They can cut your hours. They can send you home early if you're sitting around doing nothing. What I see in videos these days is, and I've experienced this myself, they want to pay you as hourly, but they want to work you as salary. They want to make you work 8 hours, pay you for 8 hours, but they want to work you for 10. That's something that even high school teachers are dealing with now. They go to work their day shift, and then it takes them all night to put together the next day lessons. It's really hard. So here's something that I bumped into. I worked a job where I thought I was hired as salary and management. Just by the nature of the job, I just presumed it was salary, right? After the probationary period, that's the key point here. After the probationary period, they wanted me to punch a time clock. They actually gave me a card to put in the machine and punch it. Something I want to bring up here. So during the interview, ask if you'll be salary or hourly. That's a legitimate question. Some people like hourly because you work your shift and go home. You don't have to think about it. As salary job, it's always on your mind, 24 hours a day. And that goes for running your own business too. It never goes away. It's always there. You're always thinking about it. So hourly is kind of nice. Put in your 8 hours and go home. So, it's not only money. What does a job pay? It's the perks. Perks is the official word. As salary or management jobs, perks are a big portion of your pay. But don't let them ding you with little bitty perks. Perks are things like health care, dental, vision, company car, company boat, paid vacations, paid schooling, college, management, master's degree, etc. But perks don't pay the bills. If your main salary, the money you're taking home every week, doesn't pay your bills, it doesn't matter how many perks you have. Something else you should be aware of, your title. The position title can be worth thousands of dollars to your next job when you're applying to your next job. And the executives know this, and they actually negotiate the title while interviewing. Let's just do a quick search for what perks are. What are company perks? Company perks are extra benefits and advantages employers offer beyond your base salary to attract, motivate, and keep employees. They are extras. Healthcare, dental, vision, paid time off, retirement plan. These days, always have your own retirement plan. So if you change companies, it's still there. You just pay into it once a month. Life and disability insurance, have your own. So if you change companies, it doesn't affect it. Remote work, flexible hours, casual dress, home office, stipend. So those sound great, but they don't help pay the bills. Casual dress code, it doesn't help pay your electric bill. You don't have to buy suits, but these days, even casual dress shirts are expensive. You're talking $50 for a golf shirt. I get these at a discount store. I pay $10-15, but if you go to a big department store, it's $50 for a golf shirt. That's just nuts. Paid certification sounds great, but it doesn't help pay the electric bill. Gym membership, cool. Something else I've heard of is they'll pay for like baseball tickets, your local baseball team. Let's get to the details, and we'll just run through this. We won't spend a lot of time on it. Your personal expenses. A job post I saw said starting pay of $50,000. I think it was like $50,000 to $60,000, which is a lot of money. Just to give you an example, in 1979, I worked at a local factory. I was fresh out of high school. It was a big factory, a worldwide company, had factories all over the world. And the CEO of that location, the main person at that factory, made $29,000. Starting pay of $50,000. That's pretty good. But so what did a Ford F-150 cost in 1979? $5,000. Super cab, $6,000. So you can see prices went up a lot. So $29,000 in 1979 was a lot of money. So that sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but let's run the numbers. Big companies that hire cybersecurity personnel will be in big cities. Okay? Big cities cost a lot to live in or live near. So you may not live downtown, but you might live like 20 miles out of the city in a suburb. But those are still expensive. Like within 20 miles driving range, half hour or so to get there. If you live farther from your job, you're looking at an hour drive. So then add 30 minutes or more to park, get in the building, up the elevator, use the restroom, grab a cup of coffee, and get to your desk. So you're talking an extra hour and a half in the morning. So if you got to be there at 8, you got to be on the road at 6:30. On the road. That means you got to get up 5:30, do what you got to do, get on the road at 6:30. It may sound kind of silly, but if you work downtown, you may have to park blocks away, park in a parking deck, walk a few blocks, get to the skyscraper, go up the elevator. Once in a while, you may get lucky and the building will have its own parking deck. I worked one place downtown where you parked in the parking deck 20 steps and you're in the office, but that's rare. Then the drive home adds another hour and a half. So you work 8 hours, but you're actually putting in 12 hours there and back. So your real work day from 8 hours is actually 9 hours, because you take an hour for lunch. You're there at the office 9 hours because you take an hour for lunch. Then add drive time to work and back home of 3 hours. So we're up to 12 hours. Okay, so by the time you get home it's 6:30. Eat supper, get ready for the next day, and you're tired. You're beat. So normally big companies that hire cybersecurity people will be in the big cities. Okay, so here we're getting started with the numbers. I'm kind of lowballing the numbers here. The one job post I saw was $60,000 a year. I think it said 50 to 60,000 divided by 52 weeks. So that's $1,100 a week. So we got $1,100 a week minus taxes. What's the state take? What's the Fed take? So you're left with about $1,000 a week. So $1,000 per week times 4 weeks, you're left with about $4,000 a month. So it sounds like a lot, right? Let's go over some of your monthly expenses. Things you may have never thought of if you're a younger person. And we'll lowball the expenses. They could be a lot higher. $1,000 for rent. Rent could be as high as $2,000-3,000 in the city. $2,500 if you buy a house. We're talking in the city. Then add property tax. After you buy a house, you got to pay property tax every month. Sewer and trash. You got to pay that sewer and trash bill every month. $500 utilities. My electric bill here, small town, old house, about $250-260 a month. My relative lives half-mile away. She said hers is $500 a month, but she probably keeps everything running 24 hours a day. Electric, water, gas, and heat. So I'm bunching those all together here, $500 a month. Well, if you buy a house, what happens if you need a new furnace? You're talking thousands of dollars. Water heater installed. You used to be able to get a water heater for $100, $50, put it in. My neighbor just had one go bad. Lowe's wanted $2,500. That's for the water heater and installed. Now we had a local guy do it, and he did it for $1,000. You buy a house, you may need a new roof. House insurance can be canceled if you have a bad roof, so you can't ignore that stuff. $5,000, $10,000 for a roof. You buy a house, or even if you rent, you're gonna have to buy a lawnmower. Even a cheap lawnmower these days, $700. Snow removal, if you live somewhere where there's snow, $70 to have your driveway plowed every time it snows. Are you gonna get out there 5 o'clock in the morning and shovel the apron so you can back out of your driveway? Probably not, if you're going to an office job. So these things add up really quick. Health insurance, $500 a month. More if you have a family. IRA deposit, that's your retirement. You gotta have your IRA. May seem like far off now, but if you don't start paying into it now, you won't have a lot when you're older. That's kind of a big deposit there. I'm just giving you rough numbers. $800 car payment, that's the average car payment these days. If you're working a high level office job, you don't want to drive in a junker, especially if you're traveling an hour a day. Car insurance, easily $100 a month. House insurance or renter's insurance, $100. $400 a month for food, a lot more if you have a family. Can't live on fast food. TV and internet, I'm paying $160 a month for 25 channels. Most pay about $250 a month for your local TV. Now these days everyone is streaming, so $50 for internet and then a handful of streaming companies. I've seen videos where people are still paying $300 a month because they have all these streaming things. $200 a month parking downtown. Sometimes the company will pay for that, but don't count on it. I've always had to pay downtown. You can usually pay by the month. It's usually like $60 a month. I had a buddy tell me he was paying $250 a month downtown, working for a law firm. Something that I had to deal with. I taught college part-time, 15 years. I actually had to buy a parking sticker, $50 per semester at one of the colleges. You believe that? They made their teachers pay for a parking sticker. I couldn't believe it. Then add unexpected expenses. If you buy a house, you may need a new sewer line. That sewer line goes bad. That's real expensive. They got to dig up a line from the house to the road. You may need a new toilet, sink repairs, etc. Then add expenses for medical emergencies, prescriptions. My mother's Eliquis heart medicine is $100 a month, and that's just the copay. Her normal insurance pays for most of it, but it's $100 a month copay. And then clothes, shoes for yourself and family. You can't go in dressed like a bum. Casual dress does not mean dressing like a bum. You know what I mean? You still gotta wear good pants, iron shirt. A few months ago I bought some new t-shirts. A bag of 10 t-shirts is $30 these days for t-shirts. And then you got your credit card bills. So just as a rough estimate here, this is a rough estimate. You know, you can add up your own numbers, but we're talking $5,000 a month. And remember up here, you know, this was only $4,000 a month. So you're short at least $1,000. So the expenses do not include clothes, child expenses, haircuts. Haircut these days, easily $30. Entertainment, you know, you're just gonna sit around at night doing nothing. Birthday presents, vacations, car repairs, house and appliance repairs, washer and dryer. I just spent $1,500 on a washer and dryer. And that's all after all these expenses up here. So you can go out on the web and search for these numbers. Rent, $2,100. The median rent for all bedrooms and all property types in the U.S. is $2,100. A lot of tech jobs are in San Francisco. The monthly rent for an apartment in San Francisco is $3,200. One bedroom apartment in San Francisco costs $3,000. When I rented, I always rented 2 bedrooms because it's nice to have that extra room for storage. Throw all your junk in there. So that's San Francisco. Of course it's going to be expensive there. What about Pittsburgh? Pittsburgh, the average rent is $1,300. The national average rent price in the U.S. is $1,500. This is what I was talking about earlier. A relative of mine bought an old 2-story house, small. We're in a small town, middle of nowhere. She told me her electric bill was $500 a month. A month. I live in Hicktown, Ohio, in the middle of nowhere, 50 miles east of Cleveland. Bad area of town. You know, the house is 120 years old. 3 doors down from me, there's a brick house. I heard the rent was $1,200 a month plus utilities. Small yard, nothing fancy. Nice house, run down, you know, it's old. But still, $1,200 per month plus utilities. Ohio minimum wage is $7.70. California is 3 times that. I taught at a tech school for $20 an hour. Sounds like a lot, but it was only 13 hours per week. 2 days one week, 3 days the next week, and an hour drive there and back. So you're still paying the gas bill. You know, you still got to pay for the gas there and back. You know. Something else, you know, if you're renting, look for a non-responsive landlord. Is the rental in disrepair? Are the gutters falling off the house? Is the porch rotten? If you're looking at a fixer-upper, rent's cheaper because it's run down, you're going to be the fixer-upper. You're working a high-level job. By the time you get home at night, you're beat. You don't want to go outside and have to work on the gutters. This is something I just added a couple days ago. My original thought was, as a young person, you got to learn to grocery shop. I remember when I was a kid, I was working a management job, living in a fancy apartment, and my idea of grocery shopping was I stopped and bought a liter of pop, some bacon, and some potato chips. I lived off McDonald's. Once in a while, I'd go to the fast food joint and order a big salad and eat on that for a couple days. But there's more to it. I've learned a lot the last few years. I'm a caregiver for my 94-year-old mother. You know, she taught me a lot. Yeah. Taking care of everything by yourself is tough. It's really tough. So if you're working and studying cybersecurity 24/7, you need someone who can help you, not add to your duties. I'm talking about a roommate. That person must have been raised properly to know how to take care of a house, a family, etc. Pick this person that can help you. Find someone 10 years younger, so when you are 80, she'll be 70. A famous comic online, he's on TV too, made a joke about his wife calling him while he was on the road. She told him the dryer is not drying the clothes. He had to tell her to clean the dryer vent. If your dryer vent is full, it won't dry the clothes. If the person you are dating does not know this, find someone else. So picking a roommate. If they say I don't cook, their apartment is a mess, etc., I'd find someone else. Sure, people change throughout their lives, but you need someone to help you now. The house and family is a job for two. If not, you'll need to learn how to grocery shop. And I'm not talking chips and a 6-pack of C4. You need real food, to work your brain. Roommate that cooks, cleans, takes care of the kids, the house. Preferably find a roommate who does not work, willing to stay home and run the house. Running the house is hard. It's no joke. They're not sitting around all day watching TV, and is willing to take on the household duties. If the roommate works, then everything is 50-50. But do you want to come home 7 o'clock at night and have to wash clothes, cook dinner, wash dishes? But ideally, you don't want to do this. Order out these days is way too expensive. Even going to McDonald's for one person, you're talking $10-15 easy. So, I think you see where I'm coming from with this. You're trying to build your career in cybersecurity. You need someone at home that can handle the other end while you're working 12 hours a day, studying at night. Find a person to be your roommate who's willing to stay home, handle the house, handle the chores, handle the kids. Something that I wanted to add to this was, you get up and leave 6:30 in the morning, right? Well, they've got to get the kids ready for school, maybe pack their lunches, dress them, get them cleaned up, dress them, drive them to school. By then it's 9 o'clock. They get home, start cleaning, washing clothes, might take a little break. Then they got to get ready to pick up the kids, 2-3 o'clock. I was picking up my niece's kids for a while. It's 3 hours. You start getting ready to pick them up. You drive there, wait a half hour. By the time you get home, it's a 3-hour trip. And then home at 3 o'clock, get ready for dinner. You're making dinner. And then you're showing up 7 o'clock. So you need the person who's willing to take that job on. Okay, so before we quit, I just wanted to run through this briefly. I have a whole video planned on this later, so we'll just go over it briefly. 3 big job websites are Dice.com, Monster.com, and Indeed.com. And lots of people use LinkedIn these days. Dice.com specializes in tech jobs. Monster.com is like everything. And Indeed is mainly like a local type search. Of course they do nationwide too, but I think of it as more of a local jobs, your state. So on Dice.com, I did a search for cybersecurity. It came up with 5,000 jobs. Monster.com, they didn't give me a number. And Indeed.com just says 900 plus. So what I wanted to show you here was, they show the dollar amounts here. You know, you're talking 193,000, 200,000. I don't know about that. Here's $81 an hour. So 2080. If you work a job full time, it's 2080 hours a year, 40 hours a week, times $81 an hour. That's pretty good there for that. $71,000. See, that would be pretty close to our 60,000. You wouldn't have much spending money. Lockheed, 58,000. That's kind of low. So you can see there's a wide range. Here they're saying 500 a day. They'll work you for a couple of days and you fix all their stuff and you're done. So 500 times 350 days. They're pretty good, you know, if they keep you on. 82 to 90. $100,000. That's the director. That's the main person. Engineer, 60. That's getting kind of low. Okay, so I think we'll call her a day there.